There was a time when Mel Gibson's name carried a rare kind of electricity in Hollywood, the kind reserved for stars who felt elemental rather than manufactured. He wasn't just popular, he seemed to embody intensity itself, a performer who brought physical force and emotional vulnerability into the same frame. Whether charging across battlefields or standing silently in moments of spiritual anguish, Gibson gave the impression that he was never acting halfway. Audiences sensed commitment, even recklessness, and that sincerity created trust. Fame came quickly and loudly, reshaping his life before he had the chance to understand what it demanded in return. In an industry that often rewards polish, Gibson stood out for rawness, and that quality made him unforgettable. Yet the same fire that powered his ascent would later reveal its dangers. From the beginning, his story was never just about success, but about how much of oneself can be safely poured into the spotlight. Childhood, faith, and inner fire. Born in 1956 in Peekskill, New York, Mel Gibson grew up in a large, deeply religious household where discipline, belief, and moral certainty shaped daily life. As one of 11 children, he learned early how to assert himself, but also how to wrestle with authority and expectation. When his family moved to Australia, the transition created a sense of being between worlds, never entirely rooted in one place or identity. Acting entered his life almost by accident, yet quickly became a release, a space where emotions could be explored rather than restrained. Those close to him noticed that beneath his charm lived a serious, introspective nature, one that could easily tip into intensity. Faith gave structure, but it did not erase inner conflict. That emotional depth would become the foundation of his greatest performances, even as it quietly carried the potential for strain when amplified by fame. Mad Max and sudden stardom, Gibson's breakthrough came with Mad Max, a low-budget film that unexpectedly reshaped global action cinema. His performance was spare and haunting, built on silence, tension, and barely contained rage. Audiences didn't just watch the character, they felt his isolation and grief, sensing something deeply personal beneath the violence. Overnight, Gibson became a star, though the speed of that transformation left little room for adjustment. The role didn't simply bring recognition, it fixed an image in the public imagination, that of a man defined by endurance, anger, and emotional damage. Hollywood quickly took notice, eager to harness that intensity. Yet success arrived before maturity had fully settled, and expectations grew faster than understanding. The character of Max, hardened and wounded, followed Gibson like a shadow, shaping how the world perceived him and how he learned to navigate fame at a young age. A leading man with emotional range. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Mel Gibson proved he was more than an action figure. Films like Gallipoli, The Year of Living Dangerously, and the Lethal Weapon series revealed a performer capable of humor, tenderness, and moral complexity. He could disarm with a smile and then quietly devastate in moments of loss. Audiences trusted him because his emotions felt earned rather than performed. Off-screen, he appeared steady, committed to family life and guided by faith, reinforcing the belief that he had balance despite extraordinary success. Few considered the effort required to maintain that image under relentless pressure. Hollywood rewarded his reliability, turning him into one of the industry's most bankable stars. Yet behind the confidence was a man constantly giving more than he replenished. The roles grew larger, the stakes higher, and the emotional costs increasingly invisible to those applauding from afar. Braveheart and the Burden of Vision. When Gibson chose to direct and star in Braveheart, skepticism followed him at every step. The project was ambitious, violent, and emotionally demanding, yet his conviction carried it through. The film's success was historic, earning major awards and securing his place as a serious filmmaker. For Gibson, it was both a triumph and a turning point. The story's themes of sacrifice, loyalty, and loss mirrored struggles he carried internally, blurring the line between art and personal identity. Directing required control, isolation, and relentless focus, intensifying pressures he had long managed quietly. With success came greater authority, but also greater distance from those who might challenge him. The applause was loud, but the solitude grew deeper. Braveheart elevated his career to new heights, yet it also marked the moment when responsibility, expectation, and emotional strain began to outweigh the joy of achievement. Creative freedom and personal conviction. Seeking independence, Gibson founded Icon Productions to pursue stories driven by belief rather than market trends. This freedom allowed him to make The Passion of the Christ, a deeply personal project rooted in faith and spiritual conviction. The film resonated powerfully with many viewers while also sparking intense debate, placing Gibson at the center of global conversation. He became known not just as an artist, but as a polarizing figure willing to stand by his vision regardless of criticism. The experience reinforced his reputation for intensity and resolve, yet it also magnified public scrutiny. Every statement, every decision carried amplified consequences. While the film achieved remarkable success, the emotional toll of standing alone in such controversy went largely unseen. Creative freedom brought fulfillment, but it also removed protective barriers, leaving Gibson more exposed to pressure, misunderstanding, and the weight of constant judgment. When private struggles became public, as years passed, those close to Gibson noticed signs of strain that success could no longer mask. Long-standing struggles with alcohol, emotional volatility, and exhaustion became harder to contain. In 2006, a late-night incident brought these private battles into public view, altering the course of his career. What might have remained a personal reckoning instead unfolded under intense media scrutiny, leading to widespread disappointment and professional consequences. Gibson later acknowledged his need for help and took steps toward recovery, but the shift in public perception was immediate and lasting. The image of the invincible star gave way to that of a flawed individual confronting his limits. The moment did not define his entire life, but it undeniably reshaped it. For the first time, fame no longer shielded him. It magnified every misstep and demanded accountability. Reckoning, withdrawal, and growth. The years that followed were marked by reflection rather than recognition. Gibson stepped back from the spotlight, focusing on sobriety, therapy, and repairing relationships rather than public image. Work became secondary to survival, and the process of accountability proved slow and humbling. Hollywood, once welcoming, remained cautious, and opportunities dwindled. Yet away from the noise, Gibson confronted parts of himself long ignored beneath success. Growth came quietly, without guarantees of forgiveness or return. The absence of applause forced him to redefine worth beyond fame, a difficult but necessary shift. Mistakes were neither erased nor excused, but acknowledged as part of a larger human struggle. In this period, resilience replaced ambition, and discipline replaced impulse. Though largely unseen, these years laid the foundation for a more grounded future, built not on admiration, but on responsibility and endurance. A measured return through storytelling. In 2016, Gibson returned to directing with Hacksaw Ridge, a film centered on faith, courage, and moral conviction without violence. Its success surprised many and reopened conversations about his artistic legacy. The film was praised not as a comeback spectacle, but as evidence of enduring skill and thoughtful restraint. Recognition came cautiously, reflecting an industry still weighing talent against history. For Gibson, the achievement was less about restoration and more about continuation. He did not reclaim his former dominance, nor did he attempt to. Instead, the film marked a moment of professional validation earned through patience rather than demand. It reminded audiences that creative ability can survive personal failure, even if trust takes longer to rebuild. Hacksaw Ridge did not rewrite the past, but it allowed space for complexity, acknowledging that growth often arrives imperfectly and without fanfare. Living with complexity, not myth today, Mel Gibson lives with a legacy shaped by brilliance, controversy, and reflection. He works selectively, mentors quietly, and values a life less consumed by public approval. Those who know him describe a man tempered by experience, aware of the harm caused by earlier choices, and committed to living with greater humility. His faith remains present, though marked by questioning rather than certainty. At 70, he no longer seeks to dominate Hollywood, and perhaps understands that some chapters cannot be rewritten. His story resists simple labels of downfall or redemption. Instead, it reflects the human reality of contradiction, growth, and consequence. Beyond the icon and the headlines stands a man still learning how to live with his past while moving forward. In that struggle lies the most honest lesson of all. Greatness does not protect us from ourselves, but accountability can still shape who we become.